everybody, to another great episode of the Beyond Normal podcast. We have a very special guest for you. We're in the midst of season 4, so we want to hop right into things for this episode here. We have a founder by the name of Jonathan Dumas. He is the founder of Common Culture Coaching Plus Consulting. He's doing some amazing work. I want to bring him on the stage, kind of let him share his story. He's also a fellow podcaster, so we're gonna dig into the podcast journey as well. But I want to bring Jonathan to the stage so he can share a little bit about what he's got going on.
What is up? How's it going?
Appreciate you joining us today. How's it feel? How you feeling?
I'm good, honestly. Came down with a little cold earlier this week, and feeling a whole lot better. Tested negative for COVID, so that's a lot of weight off my shoulders. Helped my mom adopt a dog earlier this week, so I became like a dog brother. But I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Got it. So we're gonna dig right into things. At Common Culture Coaching and Consulting, love the name.
Yeah.
The mission is to normalize everyday experiences for everyday workplaces.
Yeah.
So there's always there's this constant focus now in the world around people being able to bring their whole selves into the workspace, or just whoever they're communicating with, whatever circles they're in. But I want to know from your angle, from your perspective, what brought you to this point where you wanted to be a founder?
Yeah. Well, it's always actually been my dream to like run my own thing, and I just never knew what that looked like. I'm like the first person in my family to like be an entrepreneur, to be a founder. I'm doing this thing full time on my own and just like figuring it out. And I don't think it doesn't even really matter if you have people in your life that has done this before. Like it's going to be like work, you know what I'm saying? And I think there is a fantasization of like, this hustle culture and everything like that. Like it's a lot of work. It's hard stuff. But what brought me to this point is just that, I've always like enjoyed work. I've always enjoyed like business, always enjoyed like the psychology around business. And it was around about like my post undergrad like time when I first got like my first like salary position, right? And I just did not have a great work experience. Like I just noticed, people getting burnt out, people being underutilized, overutilized, treated like literal cogs in a machine. And so like they would just, I think in my tenure there, I saw about like 50 people in this department like turnover. Some people would only last like, 2-3 weeks. Some people would, had to go to therapy and all these different things. And so what drew me to like understanding work and really like wanting to do work well and create, equitable workplaces and doing this full time, it draws from that experience. And I just kept looking and going to different workplaces. And when I did my grad program in organizational psychology, I'm reading these books that are talking about these negative work experiences. And I'm like, this can't be real. And then I go to another job and like things are happening just as I read them, and like talking to friends and all these different things. And like people are having these experiences. And so, my belief is that work doesn't have to be boring. Work doesn't have to just be this grueling thing. Work can actually be enjoyable, be somewhat fulfilling, whether it be the paycheck that's fulfilling or the actual work that you're doing. And so I just want to, support individuals in the coaching aspect, but also organizations in creating thriving cultures for everybody.
I love what you just said there. You got to focus on B2C. B2B is always, somewhat overlooked.
Yeah.
And I think there's some opportunity for founders that look like me and you to kind of go into that B2B space. But before I dig into that a little bit, you mentioned a couple things around just as you were going through your education and you were seeing and hearing some of these stories about the experiences that people were going through. I'm curious, like what was your mindset as you were going through some of your postgraduate work and some, the process of getting your degrees? Because for myself, one of the things I noticed is that they really sold us going to college this very fairy tale, like you said, fanatization of things of the real world. So I'm curious, like what was your mindset like going through your postgraduate work when it comes to career and navigating that?
I feel that so much because I always tell people this. Like I like drank a lot of that Kool-Aid, like gallons and gallons of that Kool-Aid, and I think it's I think I think yeah, we were sold this dream that that like education is it. Like, and once you get the education, everything opens up. But like in reality, like that's just not true. Like there's so many other things that like exist there. You know what I'm saying? Like, racism still exists. You know what I'm saying? And not just racism, but like where you go to school, who privilege exists, all these different things and factors that surround me. So, I don't necessarily that American dream I used to buy into a whole lot, but it's not, American dream exists for people who have access and opportunity, and not everybody has access and opportunity. So one of the things that I was thinking about was that and told myself is that I just have to go through this. You know what I'm saying? Like I just have to like go through the ringer, and once I get up high enough, I can make changes. Or this is just something that happens. Like, and everybody's going through it. But going back to like the conversations I'm having and the people I'm interacting with and everything like that, white folks started telling me like, oh no, I didn't have to do that. Or like, oh, they don't talk to me that way. Or, oh really? Or like, there's just like all these different things that I'm seeing, and not just white folks, but like, people who went to different schools and just like all these different opportunities. And I'm just like, wait a minute. I know for a fact, and this is not just, I know for a fact that I'm working harder than you. I know for a fact that I'm better at my job than you. I know for a fact that I should be being paid more than you. And yet it's not happening. And so like, what is going on? And so like, and that's what goes back to like my undergrad or my postgraduate work of examining these things and asking questions. And the more questions I asked, the more I found out that like something's not working and something's not equitable in the systems that we're operating in and that we're told that are supposed to just work for us. If we just put our head down and work, right? But that's just not true.
Appreciate you breaking that down there, and it definitely is not true.
Yeah.
Like you said, like we just hear story after story of the real world experience, and there still is some value in going and getting your degree. You
Yep.
went ahead and got your postdoctorate, or excuse me, your post graduate degree. So I'm curious, as you were going through that experience. Were there any skills that you gained or mindset that you had that prepared you for you being an owner now? Because being an entrepreneur, there is no manual.
Yeah.
You got to really want to do this.
Yeah, no, you really do have to really want it. And so I think so grad school was really difficult for me, not just because like I was the first in my family to do it, but grad school challenges you in ways like it's not the schoolwork that's necessarily hard. Like it's hard, but it's not like that's not the thing that's like grueling, right? It's everything that goes around it, and there's always this looming thing over your shoulder. And I had like an applied thesis, so I always had something to do. That I always had something to do. But I think putting together a national survey, reaching out to people, talking to people, asking questions, writing this very long paper and putting it together, and coming up with some research and coming up with like some certified stuff that I could put and say like, yo, I like analyze this. I looked at this. Was everything that prepared me to being a founder. You know what I'm saying? Like everything that I would go through. Because like as a founder, as somebody who's running your own company by yourself, there is always something to do. There's always something that's looming over your shoulder that you got to get done. But at the same time, like I recognize that I got to like take space for myself, like not like get burnt out, because I want to do this for the long haul. I don't want to just do this for like, 2-3 years, 4 years. I really want to do this for the long haul. And so in grad school, I also, I was working like 2 or 3 jobs, grad school full-time, planning a wedding. And then I think I got married during the time that I was in grad school too. And it wasn't like, I was one of those that I was a groomzilla. I'm going to be completely frank. Like I was up in the details of my wedding. And so like, it was it was probably one of the most stressful and anxious ridden times of my life. But like all of that prepared me for like this time now. Cause like I think back to those 2.5 years I was in grad school, and like ain't nothing compared to now. So like I could, put together these workshops and presentations and like I'm still pulling from stuff I learned in my graduate work. So yeah, it was it was hard. It was hard, but like being a founder, it ain't nothing compared to being a graduate student full time and doing all the stuff I was doing.
Got it. That's interesting, man. So like that hustle, like it seems like that hustle has been kind of embedded in you, the path that you took.
Yeah.
You mentioned being a groomzilla.
Yeah.
Being in the details and things like that. It seems like it's just it's in your DNA. It's how you're wired.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I really credit that to my mom. Like you mentioned like hustle. Like my mom is an incredible hustler. Like every ounce of like work ethic that I have, every ounce of like perseverance I have, like I've learned from her, because I mean, she was young and raised like she was a single parent for a good portion of my life, and raised 3 young Black boys who are now men, and like did an excellent job of doing that. And so she would have me, like, if I had an issue with my PlayStation or something like that, growing up, she would be like, all right, tell them like what's going on. And like, if I wanted to refund something, like she'd be like, all right, you make the phone call, do that. So like, I've been doing these like calls and like all this stuff. It was like practice. She used every opportunity to like prep me for life. And so like, she likes to say is like, I raised you on purpose with a purpose. And so like, that's kind of like how I live my life and do my thing.
I like it, man. Shout out to my dudes, all the moms out there, making us do stuff that we don't want to do. But then, like when you have that conversation, like 15, 20 years later, you just got to go to them and be like, you were right. Thanks for making me do some of those things that I didn't want to do.
Yep.
You're making me think back, Jonathan. Like my mom made me do stuff like when I was 15, get a job.
Yeah.
Like as a lawn usher at this like concert facility. And it's just like, why you got me out here working and like, sitting in this rain, but that paycheck felt so good. And now like I understand the value of like work, like getting that check, like what goes into it. And so shout out to all the moms out there, again, making us do things we don't want to do.
No, 100%. I hated every single time she handed me the phone and said, you need to call them and ask them about this. I hated it. I still do, but now I know, I just know how to do it. I just do it now.
Got it. And so you mentioned the grind of being a founder. You got to get it. There's always something to do. I'm curious, like you know what your strengths are, right? But there's always those opportunity areas for us. I'm curious, like what's the area where you've had to spend maybe a little bit more time to kind of, build out your skill set on that maybe you didn't have before, that maybe, being a founder has stretched you to learn a little bit more about?
No, I appreciate you even framing it as like an opportunity, right? Not like a shortcoming or anything like that's like deficit thinking, right? And so I always try and use every opportunity, because I love to, even growing up, I love to like tinker and figure things out. My mom would get annoyed sometimes because I would take stuff apart and try and put it back together. So one of the things that I'm trying to do as a founder and not having like a ton of capital, like financial capital, I really have to like learn how to figure stuff out. So like design work, like I got to figure stuff out, and even podcasts. I have my own podcast and I had to figure editing out. And there was one time I had to teach myself how to code in like a weekend because of an episode literally got corrupted, and I had to figure out how to do that. So like there's like little things like that. Even setting up this audio visual stuff, putting together social media stuff. I do not like social media. I'm a lurker. So I'll like go on social media and maybe I'll comment occasionally, but I don't like posting and putting stuff together. So I would say like that's a big opportunity that I've learned, and just spending time and researching. Like, I realize why there's full-time social media positions within companies, because it is a job. There's strategy that goes into it. There's timing, there's phrasing, there's even a psychology that goes into the way that things are marketed. And so like those are some of the biggest areas, graphic design, audio, visual stuff, social media marketing and social media strategy are like some areas that I've really had to like focus on. And I've loved like the marketing side of it and the strategizing side of it and the designing side of it. But I still don't like social media to post stuff. It's annoying. I don't like it.
Nah, it's not for everybody. It's
No.
okay, Jonathan. Just admit it.
Yeah.
We all gotta. We know it's the new norm. We got to deal with. Just have these different channels that potential customers or just our supporters, our community can tap in with us on. And so it is a grind managing social media. So I appreciate you having that transparency and being candid with us there.
Yeah, 100%.
So you touched on your podcast a little bit. We're on a podcast now.
Yeah.
So, can you share just a little bit about, what the podcast experience is for you now and where does it fit within, your business and how you kind of generate revenue if it does for you.
Yeah. So I started podcasting in March 2020. Originally, it was basically just like a passion project. Something I love podcasts. Growing up, I actually wanted to be a radio host. So one of the things that I wanted to do in that podcast was just have intentional conversations with the people I see every day, because you don't know what you miss until you miss them. So I just had conversations with my brothers, my mom, my in-laws and stuff like that, and just asked some really intentional questions. But after George Floyd was murdered, my podcast turned into something completely different. And so I started having conversations with the people I see every day, but really much more vulnerably and much more candidly. And so it turned into like more of educational piece about like how policies, legislation, how all of the different isms, racism, all of the other obias, xenophobia, all those different things, like how those impact our day-to-day lives and our day-to-day relationships. And so, and then I just have like pretty frank and vulnerable conversations with different folks and really bringing to light those things. And so what happened was with one particular episode I had with my wife, we had just gotten back from a protest. She is a white woman from Minneapolis, Minnesota. And so it hit particularly home for us because I had been there multiple times. And so just was really, really open, really, really frank about that. And that podcast got me my Real Talk with Dumas up to top 125 for like 2 or 3 months in the social society and culture section. And so like what I began to do was drop more education, more things that are going on. And like people loved it and really enjoyed it. And so now what I've turned into doing, going on 2 years with the podcast, is like really integrating this in and using this as a resource tool for my individual clients, for the businesses that I'm working with, and saying like, hey, you want to know how like what it's like to like live authentically and vulnerably and how like these different policies and things that are impacting your employees, their families, what's going on with them. Like here's a resource that you can utilize for that. And once you actually go through this, and I typically do this with clients that are a little bit earlier, because I don't work with anybody who I have to define stuff with, that I have to define racism, that I have to define white supremacy, that I have to define these things. When I go into organization, I'm there to enhance the work that you're already doing and like level up. So like if you're already doing the work, so I will give them my podcast. I will give them a resource list that they can use that, build that up, because like I'm not going to be anybody's token or be anybody's first to establish like these things, because that's a lot of emotional labor for me. And that bill typically is a lot higher for those clients. But if they're willing to pay, I'm willing to charge. But that's how I usually do it. I also run a Patreon through there to support that podcast. And just have that running and just provide some resources, provide a community for folks who are wanting to have those intentional and I'll say meaningful and substantive conversations with the people they see every day. And in this season that I just relaunched in January, I've had the opportunity to have some folks from the Black Speaker Collection. I just joined in December. Shout out them. I'm gonna put this up if you're watching. This is the sweater. Yeah, just having some pretty cool conversations with some new found friends, colleagues, people that are doing some amazing work in HR, doctors, higher education, and having intentional conversations about their lives, about why they do the stuff that they do, and how they can make better, impactful, things happen in the world. So yeah, that's how I'd be doing it. It's really fun. I love podcasting. I really, really do.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you advocating for pod life.
Yeah.
It is a real thing. I appreciate you as well, kind of calling out a couple things there in terms of how it fits into your business, and you really integrating in your business. There's no tokenism going on.
Yeah.
Show me the money.
Yes, that's right. Wait, I got another shirt for you. It's like I bought these. It's if you're watching the YouTube video, it's like run me my money.
Yep.
So run me my money. That's right. So yeah,
I love that. And that was the Speaker Collective, right? That you mentioned.
Yeah, Black Speakers Collection. Yep.
Got it. You want to tell folks a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'll definitely plug them because they've gotten me multiple speaking clients. So if y'all are not familiar with Madison Butler, the blue-haired unicorn on LinkedIn, you really need to get connected with her because she'd be doing, or follow her because she'd be doing some amazing, amazing work. But basically, it was birthed out of essentially every November, December, January, she would get hit up like overwhelming amount for February for Black Speaker Months. And you already know how it goes, Kenny. So it's just like people want her to be speaking because she's like unapologetic on LinkedIn. And so and she had posted something about like, y'all know I do speaking gigs year round. Like I could do that, right? Like, there's Black people that speak on all kinds of stuff year round, right? And so basically she just posted on this a quick post and said, if you are a speaker, drop your information, drop all the topics you speak about, and like do it, just input it in this comment in the thread below. It blew up. And then somebody in the comment said, I will make a free website for you. I can do it in 20 minutes. And she said, no, you can't. And he was like, bet. So sent all the information, put it in a spreadsheet. Bro made a website for free. And then it just kept blowing up. So before she knew it, 100 speakers. Before she knew it, 500. Before she knew it, 1,000. Before she knew it, now like 2,000, right? Put together a Slack channel, and it just keeps growing. And people are getting speaking gigs and stuff like that, creating a community of folks that do all kinds of work from around the world, literally, from the diaspora of Black folks, and getting Black folks paid for this labor because it ain't free. And it's an incredible community. And I'm incredibly thankful and super excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, that sounds awesome, man. I'm familiar with I follow her because it is quite hilarious.
It is
how she whatever she says, it just like incites people on like some of these professional networks to like show their true colors.
Yes.
Those that haven't heard of her, Maddie Butler, she is if you haven't heard of her yet, definitely check her out. If you're on LinkedIn, she's always calling out people in a way we gotta respect. But it's good that like that collection of speakers, those types of events. We all know it's that time of the year. In February is when you just line up like your Black speakers, right? And that's the tokenism that Jonathan was speaking to earlier that we see. So in a space like this, it's definitely good to see the communities being built out so we can have those conversations year round for sure.
Absolutely. And one of the things that like was kind of frustrating, and I was nervous about even putting like anything DEI on my website was because I don't want to get pigeonholed into just that space, right? Like the Black guy, of course he talks about like DEI, what I'm saying, and belonging and justice and all that. But like I always frame myself as an organizational psychologist who's equity minded, right? And so like when I go into an organization and you're like, hey, we are having some like communication issues. Well, like who's in leadership? What communication styles are going on? How are y'all interacting? Because there might be some underlying issues that you can't see, and I can like support you in that. And we just need to like bring equity into the forefront. So yeah, that's some of the things that I was nervous about when we talk about that. But I love how open and unapologetic the community is.
That's dope. So you giving us a ton of information here, Jonathan, just around your background.
Yeah.
What's going on in your world. I'm curious. I want to make sure that I give you. I want to give you the soapbox, give you the stage in terms of for this season, we're going to definitely be asking founders, what they need. Like what are they looking for people who are listening and to do? What's that next action that they can take in terms of supporting your business? What support means. Support is how you interpret it, but I want to definitely make sure I give you the stage for that before we close out at the very end.
No, I appreciate that, Kenny. I mean, if you are interested in one-on-one coaching, I do leadership and career coaching. And the way that I do coaching is it's beyond just work, talking about work, right? Because I don't believe in the boundaries of work life and personal life, that those two things, there's nuance in between there. So I work with people on identifying their values to get what they want out of work. If they feel stagnant, lost, don't know a direction, feel like there's something else missing, I work with those and really specialize in being that like support role, an archaeologist in figuring out what is there missing, what is the underlying things there. If you are an organization that is really curious more about my work, you can visit my website, commonculturecc.com. Reach out to me. Would love to communicate with you on enhancing, what does it look like to create thriving cultures where everybody feels like they belong. And then also you can go ahead and check out my podcast, Real Talk with Dumas. Anywhere that you get your podcast. I actually just pulled my podcast from Spotify because of the whole Joe Rogan situation. But anywhere else you can find my podcast on Apple, Amazon, all those different things. Or just catch up with me on the socials, Common Culture CC on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. You can find me at Jonathan Dumas. That I'm the black face that pops up. I'm the only black Jonathan Dumas on there. So find me on there. I'd love to connect. I'd love to hear from you. And amplify other people's work. I really do appreciate it.
Appreciate that, Jonathan. Again, you gave us plenty to think about the work that you're doing in this space. Some would label it as DEI, but I definitely saw a constant theme for you throughout this conversation around just building community, building it the right way, making sure it's inclusive, and everybody feels like they can at least speak up and speak their piece.
Yeah.
And so again, I appreciate you pod brothers for sure.
Yes.
I'm definitely be checking out that podcast as well. I want folks to from who are listening in to definitely support you in any way possible. You have plenty of channels of social media that they can reach out to you on. So definitely follow up with Jonathan and his business, and looking forward to seeing how you grow throughout this year, because there's definitely a focus on from the corporate side, and then just from the employee side around career in the space that you're in.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Kenny.
All right, now. Peace, everybody.